Let us chant Namo Tassa before the start of the session. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. So no cameras today? Am I alone? Okay. Thank you. So, so we are picking off from the Marananusati that we discussed last time. And to just recollect what we did go through with the Marananusati last time, during the last class, which happened 2 weeks ago, is Marananusati or Maranasati refers to particularly the Jivita Cheda or the Jivita Cheda, Jivita Indriya Cheda, which is a cutting off of the Jivita Indriya from one life to the other. Now, this is the main point that you have to remember when it comes to the practice of Marananusati. Marananusati is the cutting off of the Jivita Indriya from one life to the other. So, that is the effective contemplation of Marananusati. What is it not? We discussed as well. It is not the complete cessation of life. What is a complete cessation of life? The complete cessation of life refers to the death of an arahant. It is not the complete cessation of life that we are talking about. We are talking about the cutting off of the Jivita Indriya from one life to the other, right? From one life to the other. What else is it not? So it is not the complete cessation of life. It is not Sammuti Marana. Sammuti Marana is the death of inanimate objects. So the death of a tree, a death of a whatever inanimate object, right? It is not Kanika Marana, momentary death, right? So from moment to moment, the rise and falling of Rupas, Rupa Kalapa, this is not Marana. The rise and fall of Chitta, Chetasika, Manodharma, this is not Marana. So it does not refer to Kanika Marana, Sammuti Marana, or the complete cessation of life, which happens when you attain enlightenment. These three things are not intended when it comes to the contemplation of Marananusati. Marananusati is a practice for intellectuals. What does this mean? Right. Marananusati is a practice for intellectuals. What it means is Marananusati, or the contemplation of Marananusati, has a strong connection to the Prajna Chetasika. Right? A strong connection to the Prajna Chetasika. Now on Sunday, right? On Sunday, during our discussions about Buddhanusati, we spoke about how at a moment or during the moment when we contemplate, or as we are contemplating on the different qualities of Buddhanusati, how one would be able to also know the meaning of Buddhanusati, or the words that we recollect and chant, right? The words that we recollect and chant. Now, here comes what we could then understand as the Prajna Chetasika, right? As the Prajna Chetasika. Whilst we are aware of the words that we are chanting, the wisdom that we have accumulated, cultivated, developed also is there with the Sati Chetasika and the whole compendium of Chitta and Chetasika Dhammas, which takes the object during that Viti process. Is that understood, everyone? Right? The Prajna Chetasika is present, right? The Prajna Chetasika is present. Now, this Prajna Chetasika has a lot to do with Marnanusati. This Prajna Chetasika has a lot to do with Marnanusati. That is why it is said that Marnanusati is an intellectual's practice. How is it an intellectual's practice? Right? How is it an intellectual's practice? So we were simply um, going through the summary of what we discussed last time. To those of you who just joined, we were just going through the summary of what we discussed last time. And we started by saying that Marnanusati is particularly known as an intellectual's practice, and by denoting that the Marnanusati practice has a strong tie and connection to the Prajna Chetasika, which is found within a Trihetuka Chitta Viti, Vijnana Sampayutta, right? Now, how is Marnanusati a intellectual's practice, right? To this, what is taken as a Marnanusati object gives us the answer. In contemplating an object in accordance to Marnanusati, the Buddha relates the importance of maintaining sanya on the three characteristics: anicca, dukkha, anatma, right? Anicca, dukkha, anatma, impermanent, suffering, and non-self is the main spirit by which this whole practice takes place. Hence, Marnanusati is also a strong tool that supports Vipassana practice, and it becomes the Vipassana practice on its own as well. How or why? Because of impermanence, suffering, and non-self being the main three characteristics that spirits energizes the perception of Marnanusati object. Is that clear? I feel like I'm going a bit too fast though. Am I going a bit too fast? Yes, okay. I thought as much. Okay. Now, right, again, reeling it back in. Okay. So, Marnanusati is an intellectual's practice. Why is Marnanusati referred to as an intellectual's practice? Because Marnanusati is closely tied to the Prajna Chetasika. How is it closely tied to the Prajna Chetasika? Because the Marnanusati practice, the perception, the sanya Chetasika, whilst doing or practicing or taking an object through the scope of Marnanusati, right? When we look at an object and we take it according to the teachings of Marnanusati, behind this object always remains impermanence, suffering, non-self, right? How this is, we will be going into in a moment. Impermanence, suffering, non-self. It is, we look at death, marana, in every aspect of marana, death, what becomes even more prominent is the exceptional presence of impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Is that clear? That's clear. Okay. To further understand what or how to practice Marnanusati, or how also to answer the question of how it is an intellectual practice, The text relates to when we start practicing Marananusati, what we should not focus on. One, we should not focus on the death of a beloved one, right? So a child, a grandchild, a person closely related, or a person who is, even a friend who is closely related to one's heart, right? The death of a beloved one. Why? Because it can bring about sorrow and grief, right? Easily. Then the death of a hostile person, a person that you do not like, right? A hostile person. Why? Because it can bring about gladness, right? Happiness over the person's death. Then the death of a person, an indifferent person, a person who you neither care about, right? A person that you are quite indifferent about, right? Quite indifferent about. Marunath ekai, nathath ekai, hitiyath ekai, nathath ekai. That kind of a person, right? That kind of a person, right? So we do not contemplate, right? So then who can we contemplate about? Now, there's a fourth person, I'm sorry, right? There's a fourth person. The death of oneself, right? Now, this is a tricky one. I will tell you how, then we will maneuver, right? So a beloved person, a hostile person, an indifferent person, and oneself, okay? Why the fourth one? Why? Because it brings about fear, right? It brings about fear. The first person brings about, the beloved person brings about sadness, grief. The second person, who is a hostile person, brings about gladness in any sense of the word. The third person, who is an indifferent person, a person you don't really care about or know about, brings about a sense of carelessness, right? It doesn't arouse. What it says is, it doesn't arouse really samvega. Samvegයක් ඇති නොවන හේතුවෙන් ඒ අරමුණ අරගෙන වැඩක් නැහැ, right? Because it doesn't bring a sense of religious movement, which is a bad translation of the word samvega, but that sense of movement doesn't arise, so it's no use, right? The example which is used is this. A doctor or a coroner, right, whose job it is working with dead bodies or people who die. Having seen or having done it so many times, the coroner has a sense of indifference to it. A doctor has a sense of indifference to that, right? That is the example which is taken, right? Very clinical, right? Okay, the person has died. That's it. No sense of samvega there, right? That sense. There is no use of it, right? The fourth person is because, meaning ourselves, we do not contemplate the death of ourselves. Why? Because it brings about fear, right? Now, the fourth one should be understood properly, but we will come into it. Shriyani, yes?
Bhante, then how do you practice viragaya and the things? This is the Maranasati is meant to do it mainly for you to get that what do you call the viragaya?
This passion.
This passion, indeed.
Correct. So we will come to it, right? Give me a moment,
Okay.
right? So these four objects we don't take: beloved, hostile, indifferent, and oneself. We do not take these objects, right? So what or how do we take the object then is the question. How do we practice this? Because if we truly look at it, there's no other person left behind, right? Either we like people or we don't like people, or we don't really care about people. And now I can't even practice it towards myself. So how do I now practice it? Right? It's like no person is left, right? So this is what, or this is how it is explained. So what is sort of a chanting, what we usually hear, right? If we approach it in this manner, what we would usually hear is, in the sense of the word we chant, Jivitaya Aniyatai Marane Niyatai, right? So we hear this chanting, or we chant it as a part of our meditation, right? What should this then intend, right? This should intend only one thing. What is that one thing? The, the cutting off of the life faculty of one birth to the other. That is it, right? Jivitaya aniyataya maranaya niyataya, right? This is the cutting off of the life faculty, the jivita indriya, from one life to the other. That is all that you need to start the contemplation. So now let us say the person, now this sense of jivita, some people, or we could even just simply take the words marana, 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 like patavi, 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 or apo, apo, apo. We can simply repeat those words marana, marana, marana. And every time the word marana is recited or repeated in one's mind or through verbal means, the only thing that we truly recollect is the fact that the cutting off of the jivta indriya. Okay, is that clear? The cutting off of the jivita indriya. That is all that we note, right? That is all that we note, which includes kala marana and akala marana both. Timely death and untimely death. Timely death is when your ayusha, your karmas in this birth have now extinguished. It's time for you to go, right? Untimely death is when your janaka karma is hindered by another karma, where you now pass, right? Where you now pass. You might have the lifespan, right? However, a karma hinders your janaka karma and you come to pass, right? Timely death and untimely death. Now, we come to the core of Marananusati. When we talk about Marana, 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 this is known as the Marananusati Parikarma. Marananusati Parikamma or Karma, however you choose to write it. Meaning, this is the basis of Marananusati practice, right? The ability to come into a state of one-pointedness over the extinguishing of jivita indriya from one life to the other. Is that clear? Right? That is the parikarma. For some, this parikarma is more than enough to reach a stage of access concentration, right? All the way up to access concentration. For some, this parikarma is more than enough. For some others, it might not be, right? For some others, the parikarma might not be enough. For those, how do we then move ahead, right? Now, I forgot to mention one part. So the 4 types of persons that we do not, so that is Marnanusati Ayoniso Mansikara. Ekane Ayoniso Mansikarයෙන් Marnanusati භාවනාව කරන්න පුළුවන් ආකාර 4ක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ආකාර 4 තමයි the loving person, the indifferent person, understood? Those 4 persons. That is the way that you would do Marnanusati with Ayoniso Mansikara. Then what is Yoniso Mansikara is what I forgot to mention. Yoniso Mansikara is this now. This is how you practice Marnanusati. We contemplate on the universality of all sattvas, and how that universality also applies to us. Is that clear? Right? The universality, death, its universality, and how that universality applies to us. That is the Yonso Mansikara. Now, the question that I would ask is then, what about the fourth? Ourselves. Didn't we just mention not to do it to ourselves? Right? The answer to that is this. When we directly approach the death of ourself, this causes fear. When we approach the death of this complex as a part of this universal nature, that does not cause fear. Do you understand the difference? Hari, mage marane මේ මනුස්සත්වයේ තියෙන මේ මරණයේ තියෙන මේ මනුස්සත්වයේ තියෙන ඒ ස්වභාවය වෙනස්. Do you understand what I'm saying? No. Again, when I'm talking about this self, I'm relating to this ego. When this ego is challenged, fear arises because I am going to die. Right? But now what is the Yonsu Mansikara of approaching it? Great beings such as the Buddhas, Brahmas, beings of the Suddhavasas, great Sakras, Chakravartis, have all lived and died. Just so my life too will come to its end. Do you understand the difference? Just so my life too will come to an end. Now, in Maitri Bhavana, the text practitioners speak of the importance of having in mind only people who are alive. In Marananusati Bhavana, only have in mind people who are dead. Do you understand? In Maitri Bhavana, have in mind only people who are alive. In Marananusati Bhavana, only have in mind people who have passed. Right? Only have in mind people who have passed. But remember, not specifically targeting one person, but targeting those clans and groups of persons. When we say Buddha, right, we are talking about all Buddhas who have attained enlightenment. When we are talking about Sakra, we are talking about all that whole reign of divine beings. When we are talking about beings of the high heavens and Brahmas, we are talking about all of those deities. We know of their greatness, but we do not know these individuals. But we know of their greatness. Right? Greatness in lustre, greatness of merit, greatness of all their sort of luminous powers and all of that. That is what we then say, if beings as great as that, if beings whose powers are as great as that do come to pass, just so this life of mine too will come to pass. Do you understand? Right? It is not an attack on our ego. So fear does not arise. Is that clear? That is how Yonso Mansikara is applied in terms of, or how through Yonso Mansikara we practice Marananusati. Right? We practice Marananusati. Now, in Marananusati, the parikarma is Marana, right? If that contemplation does not work, what do we do? If that contemplation does not work, what do we do? Then follows, then follows a couple of techniques, right? 7 different types of techniques where the Buddha, right, says, if the parikarma technique does not work, then use this, right? The first is the visual the visual of a murderer. When we are born and with life. At the time of birth, we are born together with the potential of death, with the potential of ceasing, right? Anything that arises passes away. It is because we are born that we cease. If we are not born, there is no ceasing. So when we are born, with it comes the ceasing. So this life that we hold close and dear, just like everyone else's, right? Beings far greater and far beyond us, and also below us, all sorts of beings of all planes. As they are born with the potential of one day ceasing. So just as it is said, just as a murderer would come up and say, I'm going to kill you, and then keeps with a knife and keeps a knife to that being's neck, and with it comes the potential of death. Just so death makes everything or seizes everything that we have in life. I mean, this is now, how does this work? Now you get the visual image, right? A murderer says, I'm going to kill you, right? Has a knife in hand, comes to you, puts the knife on your neck, right? Just so death can come at the most unexpected of times, at times that we least expect it. Whether it is welcome or not, death arrives. It is that aspect of death that we recall at that moment, that aspect of death, that death threatens life. And life is always threatened by death. Do you understand that part? Right? That life is always threatened by that aspect of death, marana. The second, right? Any questions with regards to that contemplation? Yes, Shreya.
So that is, you are going to get killed, and yourself looking at yourself at that moment. Yeah. Not be revenging to kill that man, the person who's come to kill you.
No, we are not going to kill anyone. Someone's coming to kill us.
Yeah. So that is how you're looking at your last minute. This is my last moment. I'm going to die now.
No.
How do you do that? I don't understand how to do that.
Okay.
I can't imagine somebody coming to kill me, and I don't know how I would be running for my dear life.
Okay. So here what we are looking at is the nature of life. When it comes to life, we look at it with the egos and with the solidity that we consider solid and present and concrete. We do not assume its fragility, right? We are looking at the fragility of this life, which we consider so stable and concrete. Does that make sense? Api hitanawa අපිට දැන් මේ ජීවිතේ තියෙන ආරක්ෂාවල් මේ ජීවිතේ අපි කරන්න කියන හැම දෙයක් එක්කම මේ මගේ ජීවිතේ ස්ථාවරයි කියන මේ පදනමේ අපි ජීවත් වෙනවා. ඒත් ඇත්තටම මේ ස්ථාවරයි කියන පදනමක් මේ ජීවිතේ නැහැ. මොකද මේ මරණය කියන දෙය අපි උප්පත්තියක් ලැබපු දවසේ පටන් මේ මරණය කියන මේ possibility එක අපිට එක තියෙනවා. Even if we are to cross the road, right, without being aware, right, this, even if we are sort of trying to sort of, we are on a tube station and we mindlessly walk into the tracks just as the train arrives, the potential of death is present. Even if we are sort of taking a cleaning detergent or some sort of poison or whatever it is in our sort of cleaning cupboard, right? And we mindlessly, without any sort of attention, we drink that thinking it is a glass of water. Death is there. The fragility of this life, that is, Shriyani, what we are contemplating here. Then another. Right? Otukutta, what does this example tell you? This example tells you, right? This murderer, you have not permitted this murderer to come. This murderer comes on his own, keeps a knife to your neck and takes your life when the murderer deems that it is fair to do so or fit to do so. Do you understand? The murderer is not going to ask you, do you want to die or not? The murderer says, I will kill you. That is what we assume. Of that is the contemplation that we do. The murderer is not asking for our permission here. The murderer is telling, I'm going to kill you, regardless of what you want me to do or not to. Do you understand?
Bhante, won't it create fear when you, because just like the number 4 in the Ayonosi Manasikara,
Yeah.
Now if you visualize a murderer with a knife, it will create fear in you, won't it?
No. The thing is this is not essentially thinking about the murderer with a knife or imagine, oh my gosh, a murderer is going to come, right? The murderer is going to come. No, actually in Stanway, there are, on the Stanway neighborhood group, there had been a couple of boys who had jumped into one of the gardens from behind, right? So on the same line of the houses that the Dhamma Center is on, right? So sometimes I forget to lock the garden door. Right? And then I'm doing the class and I hear something downstairs and I'm like, okay, is it those boys? It's not something like that, right? This again, this is talking about the possibility, the fact that death arrives without our permission. Do you get it? It's as a nature of life. Just as the murderer comes on his own, death comes on his own. Just as the murderer does not ask for your permission to take your life, the murderer does not ask. Just like the murderer does not ask for your permission to take your life, death does not ask for your permission to take your life. The fact that however much we feel like we have control of our lives, when it comes to the time that we have to go, we go. And that is true to you and me, to all Buddhas, to all Brahmas, all Chakravartis, all Suddhavastaka beings, any being in this universe, in this samsara, however much great these beings are, even when it comes to the great Yama himself, when death comes tapping, you go. That is what it says. Do you understand? Does that make sense, Mala? So we are not really talking about a murderer coming and sticking a knife to our throat. We are talking about that fragility of life, just as a murderer would come and without our permission take away our most prized possession, life. Yeah?
Bhante, it's inevitable.
Yes.
Inevitable death
Inevitable death.
Death,
Now,
yes.
the inevitability of death was focused upon Damsiri when we said Jivitaya aniyataya marnaya niyata. Marana focused on the inevitability of death. With the inevitability of death, what we are now doing, inevitable, plus we do not have control over when it comes. These two aspects make a වෙනවමයි. ඒත් ඒ වෙන අවස්ථාවේ අපිට නිගමනය කරන්න බෑ මේක මේ වෙලාවට වෙනවද තව මිනිත් 5කින් වෙනවද නෑ වෙන වෙලාවට වෙනවා. That
Time,
is,
no place. I said no time, no place, Bhante.
no time, no place.
Inevitable.
Bhante,
Inevitable. Yes.
you earlier said that not to think of the death of a beloved one at the deathbed, right?
Yes.
Can you control your thoughts last minute?
No, I did not say not to think about a beloved person during the time of death. I said
Not to contemplate.
focusing on a beloved person or taking the beloved person as an object of death, right, brings grief. So do not use a beloved person as a meditational object.
Oh, was it right? Okay, Bhante, I
Right.
misunderstood
Okay?
there.
As a meditation object. Yeah. Because
Do
it
not take.
do not take, right? Do not take. When we are able to have a sense of equanimity, then we are able to take. Same story with Maitri, remember? With Maitri Bhavana, same story we have. Not to display Maitri towards, or not to take, not the fact of not displaying, not to take as object a person who is beloved, a person who is hostile, the same thing actually. A person who is beloved, a person who is hostile, a person who you are indifferent to, right? And the last one is
Yourself. Self.
yourself, yeah. And the last one is yourself. Don't take these 4 persons as objects of metta. Right?
Varna.
Why? Because of the attachment that can arise, because of the hate that can arise, because of the indifference that can arise, and because of the attachment that can arise. Yeah. Hence,
Bhante, as you said, fear of death is worse than death itself.
yes.
And if you keep on saying marana, 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 marana 24 hours, is there a middle path there? Otherwise, you'll make your life
Now-
miserable.
Exactly. Now, this is where Yonsumansakara comes in. That is very important here. When we approach this subject through Yonsumansakara, this thought does not arise. It does not arise in a manner, that it brings misery or depression. It arises in a manner that actually further strengthens you. It arises in a manner that you grow further comfortable with yourself. It further arises in a manner that you grow further confidence. Right? You grow further confidence. Right? It does not weaken you, it strengthens you. But if we frivolously approach it, if we are to frivolously approach this meditational object, then the mind will sway. That is why, in the beginning, what is the parikarma technique? The parikarma technique is the jivita indriya, which ensures the flow, the continuum of life comes to an end. At its end, we pass from this birth and arise in another. Right? That is the main thing. Then api samanya vidiyata, as normal sort of in a day-to-day, if we are talking about without any sort of Yonsumansakara, if we are just sort of chatting and we talk about death, what are we talking about? Death. Leaving the people that we love. Leaving the treasures, the wealth, the oppos, the everything that we have in our lockers. Right? The oppos as well. Right? Everything that we have in our lockers, right? That's what we're talking about, isn't it? All of the things that we have amassed, this life, right? This life with a name, with a face, right? This person who has so many relationships, kids, grandchildren, great grandchildren, also maybe, or regardless, this person dying, we don't want to hear it, right? But that is not what we are contemplating with Yonsumansikara. Right? The earlier, what I just mentioned is the story, you see. Is the story. What is the story? I am a grandfather. I have grandchildren. I have this. I have done so much. I've lived so much. I have so many people who love me. I have so many titles and degrees. Not in a man sort of way. This is my life. Right? This is my life. I have all of these things. This is what I've done for 70, 80, 90 years of time. That is the story. When we simply talk, we are talking about the death of that story. Right? Who wants a beautiful story to end? No one. Right? No one wants that story to end. But in Marananusati, we are not talking about the death of that story. We are talking about the universality of human birth. Right? Now, for example, I might be eating humble pie, right? You might be eating something else, something far more richer. Another person might be having champagne and caviar for breakfast, right? Right. Right. Now that is the story. That is the story, right? At the end, what is we eat? That's in reality, although I might be eating humble pie and another person might be having champagne and caviar for breakfast, at the end of the day, it's filling a stomach up, right? We are talking about that base, not the story. The story is where it hurts. The story is where it hurts. We are not talking about the story. We are talking about the universal experience of human birth. මේ සියලු සත්‍යයන් බුදුහාමුදුරුවොත් ඉපදිලා නැතුණා නම් මං ගැන කවර කතාවද? Right? That is what we are relating to, not the story behind all of these things that we create. Because that sense of depression comes from the mind with Ayonsumansikara going into that story. Right? Going into that story. And in most cases, it is that story that makes everything far more difficult. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, clear.
Yeah. So that is what that Yonsmanskara, that sense of Yonsmanskara does. So with a beloved person, that beloved object is a story, no? The hated person, hostile person, it's a story. Right? All of these. So in the Buddha saying, don't go into these four objects, what the Buddha is really saying is don't go into your egocentric stories, focus on reality. What is reality? If I'm dying, you're also going to die. That's it. That is what we are talking about here. Right? That is where we do not have that sense of fear. Because I am not walking into the tunnel alone. Right? We are all actually going towards the tunnel together as a group. Right? We are all going into that as a group. Yeah. Yes. Anyone?
I think I had to just make a comment, Bhante.
Yeah.
That is, I was thinking of the Queen. She left everything. And
Yes.
that's another story.
Yeah.
That's the story, I thought. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
No one wanted her to die. Everybody loves her, but yet she had to go.
Yes.
That fateful day, whatever the day was, just to tell you that, Bhante.
Exactly. So exactly like the queen and so many other people, right? So many other people. Kala or akala, that is what we focus on in Marananusati. Now, is it clear why then it will not go into that depressive state of mind? Yeah, that is what you have to maintain during the time of Yonasomansikara plus meditation, right? So even in simply just recollecting or simply just using, because like for example, we use karma even when something really bad happens to us, we use karma to sort of feel better, right? Sometimes feel better. And in some cases, we also use death. It's fine, we are all going to die one day, right? Now, if it is done in a Yonismanskara manner, that depressive state will not arise. But if it is done with Ayonismanskara, it is sort of draws parallels with simply just giving up, right? Which is not that Buddhist sense of the practice, right? So the first, did you then understand the example of the murder? Is that clear, everyone? Okay. Now, what is the second? Now, in life, right, we will look at the Jivita Indriya, right, or the Jivita, and we will sort of say, okay, Marana, death comes like a murderer, and do all of those things, and they will take it away. Now, what is the second thing? Now, second thing also we've already discussed, right? Just as all the men, the beings, the men, the women, the beings who have had great accomplishment in life, right, have had to pass, all prosperity of that person's life coming to an end with that. Just so I too, regardless of my prosperity, would also one day have to pass. Right? Is that clear, everyone? ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ ජීවිතේ මොන පදක්කම් මොන ධන දේපල තිබ්බත් මටත් වඩා තිබිච්ච මිනිස්සු මේ සියල්ලම දාලා යන්න වුණා නම් මටත් දවසක ඒ දෙයම සිදු වෙනවා. Right? That sense. Right? Because we assume just because we have a lot we can't leave. Right? And actually, there are people who sort of volunteered themselves to be frozen in sort of these high chambers. They're still frozen, right? And they hope to revive them when science is, more advanced, so that they can live forever. So when they find a way to live forever, these people are to be sort of revived, right? And their sort of wealth has gone into facilitating the science behind eternal longevity, right? And they are frozen in these sort of, right? So,
So
say
thinking only.
in these frozen chambers, yes, in these frozen chambers, right? But as the Buddha has taught, and I mean the Buddha even doesn't need to say this. We've seen so much in our own lives, the fact that regardless, we have to leave. අපිට මොනවද තිබ්බත්, right? Whatever reputations we have and all of these things, one day we must say goodbye. And that is what we recollect in the second phase of it, right? First, it was the fact that this can be taken away, right? This can be taken away. The second is the fact that Monadeya Tibbat, regardless of whatever prosperity I have in my life, I will have to leave it and go. Do you understand? Right? That's the second one. Any questions? Damsiri, I hinavennu.
It's a bit of a question.
Okay.
If someone's body is frozen,
Okay.
someone body
Yeah, Mala, you'll have to mute yourself.
you are mute.
Meaning, it is muted. You'll have to lower your volume.
Is okay.
Yeah.
Body is frozen.
Okay.
What will happen to Jivitendriya?
Damsiri, do you hate me?
No.
Yeah.
Artificially manufactured Jivitendriya, they will put into that body.
Yeah. What do you think, Damsiri?
I think it's frozen.
Well, it is a Tejo Dhatu which has been reduced to such an extent where it is now frozen. In
Yeah.
the Tejo Dhatu being frozen, Tejo Dhatu must be warm for maturity to happen. Tejo Dhatu on the other extreme being frozen, the maturity does not take place.
Yeah.
So Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo and Jiviti Indriya is a manifestation of the Tejo Dhatu.
Yes.
Right? So the Jivita Rupa, right? The Jivita Rupa has Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, right? But Tejo is predominant in the Jivita Rupa.
Okay.
So Tejo Dhatu has two extremes, which is heat, fire, and cold, right? And it goes on to the cold extreme. So when it goes on to the cold extreme, now being frozen, the Kalapa itself is now frozen. But of course, Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu all exist.
Yeah.
But in that frozen extreme, so maturity does not take place. So even if you have to take fruit or vegetables in the fridge, the same thing. Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. However, if it is hot or warm, of course, the vegetables are going to rot, right? If it is cold or frozen, the vegetables will last far more longer. What is the frozen attribute? The frozen attribute is a Tejo Dhatu. Yeah. But the real question is actually not the Tejo Dhatu. The real question is the Mano Jivita. The real question is Mano Jivita. How does that remain? The easy question is actually Jivita Rupa. The hard, difficult question that actually I do not know how to answer is how. Yeah, that is a difficult question. If they one day do figure out a manner in which they can completely resurrect the frozen being, the person, then the question exists: how did the Manojivita last? No. Yeah. All right. Now the third one. Now the third one is in the past, right? Now the first one was a murder. The second one was regarding the prosperity of the person, right? The prosperity of the person, right? Regarding wealth, what that person has in their life, right? It says, it should be recollected by inferring one's own death from that of others, right? Inferring one's own death from the death of others, right? So we are not directly saying, I'm going to die. But what we are inferring is, because everyone in the past has died, I'm going to die. Do you understand what I mean? Right? We are not saying I'm going to die. We are clearly noting all these beings in the past. All these beings in the past, regardless of anything and everything that they've had, money, pomp, merit, glory, pride, all of these things, status, all of these things, they have come to pass. They are no more. Just so. It's not to say that none what this, now remember, it is not to say that what they did does not matter. No. This is to say, whatever they did, they had to move on. They had to pass. Just so the same would apply, or I am of the same nature. The first one was the element that we have no control when and where death comes. The second was prosperity and wealth, right? Regardless. The second is in the past, beings who've risen have come to pass. Just as they had their time to live and do what they had to do and pass, just so we too will have to do the same. You know, it is quite, it is quite, it's like, you've been young at one point, right? Teenagers or, early 20s or whatnot, right? And then you sort of look at the teenagers and the young people now, and you sort of, it's kind of surreal in a way, because we remember we were once that age, right? And now sort of we've grown to a different age, and they are doing, they have that status now, right? And we can't go there. We are physically unable to go there and be that. However, they are doing all of that now, and we've basically matured, right? And so just as we had the time to be young, right, then we had the time to be mature. Simple as that. Just so, just as those beings in the past have risen and passed, regardless of whatever positions or whatever that they have accomplished or whatever it is, just so the same would happen to me. Does that make sense? Right? Now, in the first instance, why we are coming to this technique is because the parikarma was unable to give us that sense of fulfillment in terms of the access, samadhi, right? Why did we not gain access samadhi? Mokada? The stories were too much. Now what are we doing? We are breaking down the stories. Do you understand? We are breaking down ආත්මයෙන් හදපු ඒ කතා ටික දැන් අපි කඩනවා. ඒ කඩන ආකාර විදි ටික තමයි දැන් මේ බුදුහාමුදුරු කියන්නේ මෙතන. Is that clear, everyone? Right? අපේ මේ මනුෂ්‍යත්වයේ තියෙන යම්කිසි විදිහකට අපි වටිනා හෝ යම්කිසි විදිහකට මේ ශක්තියක් කියලා අපි යම්කිසි දෙයක් අපි දකිනව නම් බුදුහාමුදුරු දැන් මේ ශක්ති ටික එක පෙන්න කියනවා. අතීතෙත් හිටිය මෙව්ව කට්ටිය. ඒ කට්ටියක් නැති වුණා. Right? Just so every person will have to go through the same. ඉතින් තමන් හිතන ඔය ශක්තිය ඇත්තටම ශක්තියක් නෙමෙයි. Do you understand? Yeah, that is what the Buddha is now taking one bit by bit. First we thought we can control ආත්ම සංඥාව. ඒ ආත්ම සංඥාට ගැව්ව පළවෙනි එකෙන්. Death will come, and as it comes, you have to go. Death decides, you don't decide. You have no power of decision. The second one was the fact, all the things that you have, prosperity and everything that you have amassed during your time. Regardless of how much you've amassed, you have to go. Right? The third one, whatever accomplishments and achievements you've had in your life, from the humble ones to the more surreal, more sort of superhuman ones, regardless, you have to go. Even as an arahant, even as a patisambhidalavi, even as a bodhisattva, even as a Sambhasambuddha, you have to go. Right. That. Yes, Mala. You want to say something? No. Okay. Then we have, at all events, death is inevitable because this body is subject to all the causes of death, such as the many diseases, as well as all other external dangers. At any moment, any of these may beset the body and cause it to perish. In this connection, right? In this connection, the Buddha says, this changes, the changes which takes place, right? The many diseases and all of these things determine when death arises. So now, whilst we may assume ourselves in high positions of power, a little disease would come along and take it all away. An illness can come and take it all away. An air bubble in your veins can take it all away. See the fragility, right? The fragility of that. That is the fourth, right? Through diseases, illnesses, and external dangers. Yeah, it can be all taken away. Then the fifth, the life of beings is bound up by inhalation and exhalation, with postures, with heat and cold, with the four elements and with food. Life continues only when it is supported by the regular functioning of the breath, inhaled and exhaled. When this process ceases, කොච්චර ලේසියෙන් මේ මරණය කියන දේ ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද අපේ ජීවිතේ? Yeah. When we inhale and exhale, do we think about inhaling and exhaling? Not really. When we meditate, maybe, but before we meditated or started meditation, did we ever even sort of take time to think about it when we were so busy with everything that was going on? No, not really. Right? The food. Since we've always had food on our tables and, not real difficulty with getting food on the table, did we? No, not really. Right? It's a swipe of a card or just a matter of a servant going to get it or you going and getting it yourself. Simple as that. Never thought about it. But the moment that simple thing ceases, death comes. Right? The moment that simple thing ceases, death comes. Right? Death comes. Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. One of these things, these universal rupas, at any point, if Patavi becomes abnormally stronger than the rest, you will die. If Apo becomes abnormally high than the rest, you will die. If Tejo the same, you will die. If Vayu the same, you will die. And what are these? These are minute natures found in each and every kalapa. Yeah? Now see how easily death can come to us all. Yeah? That is the fifth one. All of these things which are so minute in our lives, things that we don't even think are important, are the things that are actually keeping us alive. If one of them goes off balance, our life will come to an end. Hence, the ego that thinks that it is all powerful and all strong. Isn't it? The ego, at the end of the day, the ego does absolutely nothing other than making an utter fool of yourself. Then the sixth one is, life in this world is uncertain because it cannot be determined as regards time, cause, place, or destiny. So it is said. What does that mean? Life, basically taking the sense of ජීවිතය අනියතයි. ජීවිතයේ කිසිම ආකාර විදියකට අපිට කියන්න බෑ නියතයි කියලා. We see those who are quite young in age pass. And when they do, it is so difficult to deal with it because we feel that it is so unfair of the world, the gods, the universe, to sort of take such a pure being out of this world. But at the end, that is itself human nature. Maranaya aniyatai. Maranaya niyatai, but that is not the focus. We focus on jivitaya aniyatai. The fact that life is not certain. We cannot say this will happen in life. This is the way that it will go. Right? What the Kapuas and the Gurun Vahanses say, we cannot say. Right? That life will go in this manner. You will live up to this. It is uncertain. So taking the uncertainty of life, we realize the certainty of death in our lives. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Yeah. Then we have the last. The last is the life of a human being is short. He who is long lived lives only 100 years or a little more. Yeah. කොච්චර ජීවත් වුණත් මේ ආයුස් කල්පයෙන් නැති වෙන දාට we will die. We will pass. We will only live up until that allowance time of that time. So in this time, beings will not live up to 1,000 years or 500 years. Right? The closest, I think, beings some have lived up to 130 years or 40 years. Nothing more than that, if I remember correctly. Right? Closer to the Avishkar, the allowance of that time. Right? However much we would do. Right? However much we would do. I have this devotee of mine who is quite wealthy, right? I think his net worth is more than 500 million US, right? So I asked him one day, he came to see me in Sri Lanka one day, and I asked him, no, I didn't ask him, he told me that he's going to Germany for a health checkup. And I was like, why Germany? And he said, the doctors are good. And he went on to say, I do a health checkup every 3 months or so to make sure that everything is right and in order. Right? Every 3 months. Yeah, he's not that old. Right. Right. So the inability, the fear of leaving all that he has behind prompts him to go to Germany every 3 months to do a health checkup. Right? When you have, and when you do have a lot, you want to maintain it. right? You want to maintain it. So with that, all disappears. So what the Buddha in these 7 says is, whatever you might do, whatever you might have, you will have this death will come. Taking away that sense of I can control, the power of the ego, taking all of that away and saying, no, none of that will at the end help you to live eternally. No one will be able to live eternally, right? Focused on that. With that, now this is parikarma is done. Parikarma was marana, right? Parikarma was done. Was it 7 or 8? Hold on. There's one more. Parikarma is done. These 8, actually, not 7, these 8, the 8th one being life of beings is exceedingly short, lasts merely for one conscious moment, right? Meaning, one conscious moment. What this is talking about is this. Now, Khanika Marana we did not take, right? We were essentially, initially we were told Khanika Marana is not Maranasati. So what is this talking about, right? This is talking about the being. Now, if I am to take Bhante, right? The being is truly the one who is of this moment. The past, the story of what I have done is the attachment to memory created by the ego self. What I want to do is a story which I have not yet accomplished for myself. The only being there is right here, right now. Moment to moment, this being with you, moment to moment, I exist and then pass. The fact, the true power that I exercise is not in the future, it's not in the past, but is only of this upadhatiti banga. Of this upadhatiti banga. This life and the power of this life is so short. Do you get what I mean? The insinuation there. The fact that true power, what you can truly do, right, and where you truly hold power is so short and only within this present moment. It is within this upadhatiti banga of the present moment that we are able to do and accomplish whatever it is that we want to accomplish during this moment. Life is that short. That is the 8th one, which goes down to say, which goes very deep into saying, right? The past, the future does not exist. මේ මොහොතේ ඉන්න මනුස්සයා විතරයි ඉන්නේ. අතීතේ අපි කරපු දේවල් අල්ලගන්න තණ්හාවයි මතකයේ හේතුවෙන්. අනාගතේ is a hallucination. Right? It is a creation of mind. The only being that is present is this being of this moment. And that life is short. Do you get what I mean? May upadhatiti banga, this moment. So when, or if we are able to come to that event, that occasion of the 8th stage, that 8th stage is absolutely saying, look, there is no person, there is no long life here. There is no 70 years or 80 years or 50 or whatever years. The only being there is truly is the fact of this being right here, right now. Yeah. That is what it
Bhante
is.
is like saying to live in the present moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And saying it is only in that present moment that we exercise absolute power. No other moment can we control. No other moment can we control. Yeah. Does that make sense, everyone? Then pain on it, Marananusati. Actually, when we go through these 8 stages, you see how powerful Marananusati is. Yeah. Samantha, is that what they mean by no time and no space, Bhante? No time, no space. No time, no space. No time, no space. No time and space. What do you mean, Samantha? Where?
But yeah, I've heard that expression, time and space.
Mm.
Talk about it. I think Venerable Dhammajiva maybe keeps talking about no time and space and thing, but never really understood exactly what that meant. But the only thing I could sort of like think about is like maybe in the present moment, like what Bhante was saying. It's only in the present moment, arising, passing. There's no time because it's just going quickly. Every moment is just gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the space, not sure what they mean by no space. Whether is there anything that occupies the universe, or because there's no entity, I suppose. We're just aggregates.
No time and space. Well,
Bhante, the no time and no space is a time domain and space domain.
yeah.
So that means in mundane world, your consciousness exists with the body, right? You have embodied consciousness, right? That is because you are in 4-dimensional world, mundane world. 4 dimension is space and time, right?
Okay.
And when it comes to supramundane, there are quite number of theories, and some people say that it's beyond the time. There's no time in supramundane, and there's no space in supramundane, right? Because it is not in the mundane world. In this mundane world, we have space, which is the solidity, and the time with past and the future. But in the mundane world, you don't have that. But supramundane world, you come out of it. And when it comes to, I have been doing a little bit of research on this, and when I see consciousness exists in the mundane world with the body embodied.
With the body embodied.
Yeah. So that means there's a union between
Mind.
or body and mind.
Yes.
And there's a possibility that that union can be separate in other existences, like Arupaloka,
Arupaloka.
right? There's no body.
Yes.
It's only the consciousness.
Yes.
So when it comes to Arupaloka, it's not time and space. probably it's only time, but not no space.
Well,
So that's how you explain the time. Time and space is actually, it's a more scientific word. It's a 4-dimensional world.
mm, mm,
4 dimension is time and your x, y, z axis coordinates,
yes.
your height, width, and the length. So that's why the 4 dimensions comes. And
We,
the simplified version is space. Space, that means any body occupies that space. And then the time is, you clearly separate your past and your future, and you identify the present as an entity. But when you say timeless, that means you are only in the present, because in that domain there's no past, there's no future.
yes. And remember, once in the Vipassana, we spoke about how time is a measurement of anicca, where the whole process of impermanence is what time essentially measures as well, isn't it, Damsare?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about that, I think,
Yeah.
a bit of time ago, and in that sense, time, because of the lack of physicality within the Arupa Vachara planes,
Yeah.
time does not exist, and that is also one of the reasons why in the Pancha Suddhavasa, the Ayusha, although there is no need to live so long because these are enlightened beings, they actually do persist for such a long time because there is no gravity around that time of existence. It is all mind.
That means there's no space.
There is no space. So
Yeah.
no gravity, in the sense,
Yeah.
no space.
Space, yes.
No space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, yes, Samantha, in a way, when we talk about the fact of in our contemplation, when we come into a realize, or if we can come into a realization that there is no past and future, it is only this present, what I choose to do now. The Buddha essentially saying, if you are a good person right here, right now, if you have a wholesome state of mind, if you choose the right things that you do and the right way in which you enact yourself at this very moment, then that is all that truly matters, because one can sort of confide in the fact that your result is going to be good as well, right? In having stability of mind, a part of having that stability of mind is having confidence in the actions, body, speech, and mind of the present. And when that is done so with that amount of purity and confidence, you don't have to worry about the next moment.
Yeah, and also I was just thinking, time is, I mean, I was just thinking, what exactly is time? It's man-made, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't really exist, time. Because I mean, we just took the Christian calendar and blah, blah, blah. And then for existence, we can just use that as a measurement. But there isn't really anything as time. It's just like every moment in moment, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
But we don't know where the end is.
Absolutely.
Things like, yeah.
It's like when they would measure how old a stone or rock is, they would measure that in terms of how long it would take for it to mature from the stages of compression and all of that. Essentially, what they're measuring is change.
Yeah.
And how long, and the number, the time that they give it is the number of the amount of time it takes for that change to occur.
Yeah.
AKA impermanence.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
And Bhante, the Dhamma is, that's why Dhamma is called Akaliko.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Bhante, the yogis that you meditate, they go into sort of like for days and months, they go on meditating. So do they take the time to an account?
Do they not take the time, or do they take the time?
Do they take or do they not take? I
Well,
have no.
the thing is, when you're in deep samadhi, right? When you're in deep samadhi, you don't really, time disappears, no?
Yeah, yeah,
Time disappears entirely, where
indeed.
the mind is focused upon this one object, and it is stable upon this object. Hence, no impermanence with regards to that object which is taken as mind object, mano dhatu. Hence, what happens is there is no measurement of time because there's nothing to measure.
Mm.
The object persists. And what is the object? Samadhi, a state of mind. Yeah, so that is why then, from when we transgress from, let us say, a kasina, a parikarma nimitta, to then parikarma nimitta, then upachara, then all of that, and go into rupa jhana, then arupa jhana. The further we go away from physical based object, physicality based mental object, the further we go away, the longer meditation is, or the calmer or the better, more sublime the meditation feels, right? Is because, just like, for example, as long as that there is space, the body would mature and age and decay and death, right? When this sort of physical connection is not there, the mind prospers far more. The mind prospers far more. Right? So in the same way, api then, now that is jhana, right? If we might sort of reel it back in and apply that same thing into our life, physicality can be compared, or the physicality effect can be compared to lobha, dosa, moha, any aspect of the mundane world which entrenches us into the mundane world, is that gravitational pull, is like the gravitational pull of physicality, right? So raga, dosa, moha, any sort of unwholesome dhamma, right, is something that entrenches us into the very, very gross, right? It entrenches us into this mundane world. Similarly, the kusala, right? Similarly, the kusala, but the kusala is less gross than the unwholesome gross,
Mm. Mm.
right? So then when we go beyond both of that, we are able to then sort of then do the arupa. In the arupa, that is why they live so long, because they are not conditioned by the gross conditions of physical kusala and akusala. Do you get what I mean? Right? But as Buddhas have proven, so physical kusala and akusala is what enables a being to obtain Buddhahood. Right? Is what allows a being to attain Buddhahood. Now, for example, let us say we lived in a place, right, where we had access to the best food there is, organic. The water that we drink is so pure. The air that we breathe is so pure, right? Everything is so good. The highest, the best of quality. Even the clothes that we wear, there is not a shred of polyester or plastic in it, right? The fish that we eat does not have any microplastic. Let's say we live in a place where and we've not even heard, right? We've had no need to even contemplate that life is anything but what we experience here and now. Let's think we are living in a paradise like that,
Utopia.
like a utopia, right? Like a utopia. Actually, when we were living in, when I was living in the Aranya, it was like that. Actually, we had no inclination, or of how sort of rough and scary the world is, right? I started learning about the world when I came to the UK, and that was a rude awakening. Right? That was a rude awakening, right? I mean, honestly, right? We had no clue. But that is like the Rupa Loka and the Arupa Lokas, right? But because when you are now sort of aware, so you don't have any compassion also with regard, you don't even cultivate develop a need to cultivate that extent of compassion, because there's nothing to be compassionate about. We are all living the same utopic life, right? But when we see now the suffering, when the veil falls and we see the suffering now, you're like, oh my gosh, poor people. What can I do for them? Right? What can I do for them? And that is what then enables, that is what then comes into beings becoming Buddhas and all of that. Right? Because then those mentalities are able to push that sense of compassion, karuna, mudita, upekka into the picture, to truly cultivate those deep attributes. That is why in the Rupa, Arupa lokas, you can't attain Buddhahood through those, because the suffering is so less in those worlds, so disconnected from that level of suffering. You don't need to cultivate that amount of compassion, forbearance, patience, because not that these people are bad, there is no need for it, because the world is so good. Buddhas don't even arise when the world is so purely good, because there's no use for it, and people are unable to understand the Dhamma at all, because their minds don't go to come to see that suffering sense of the world. Right? They live that long, their minds are pure, they're living good lives. It doesn't happen. It is when dukkha arises that we are truly able to make true efforts towards Buddhahood or Bodhisattvahood. Yeah. So, yes, Mala.
Bhante, to attain the Sotapanna, to enter the path, you have to start as a human being. Is that right? Because you have to, the Saddharma Sravana is also important.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to?
No, you can start in the Deva realms and you can continue it. You can start in the Deva. Now, for example, there were Devas who reached states, right, as Devas. Remember?
Yeah, when Arahat Mahinda came
Not-
to Sri Lanka, they said that there were Devas who attained,
Yes,
sainthood.
that instance. Oh, yes, that instance of the Kutta, even during the Buddha's time, so many, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, arahats, brahmas, and all of that. The only thing that they can't attain in that life is Buddhahood. They can attain the other things, other states. Okay.
But Bhante,
Yeah.
but even if you get to that state, like the one the step before the Arahant stage, is it Anagami or?
Yeah.
They end up in Arupa world.
Yes.
But they have to have a determination, though, isn't it? You can still.
So that's why the word stream entry is used, because it is like falling into a stream, and the stream will flow in one direction. Right. So in one way or the other, that is why in the Satipatthana Sutra commentary, it is said, no, Satipatthana Sutra itself, it is said, any person who practices the Satipatthana from the course of 7 days to 7 years, if the Satipatthana is practiced continuously, arduously, with commitment, he will for sure attain Nibbana. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds easy, though. Sorry, yeah.
Bhante, you used he. What about she?
He, she, they, it, everything.
No, I think we were made to believe only the men can attain, not the women. You see?
Well, I don't know. I didn't say that.
No, you didn't. You didn't. No, that's how we were brainwashed to think as children,
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well.
Rahat wenna minihek wenna mona kiyala. Only men can rahat, not the women. But now it's changed. The opinion has changed,
Well, I mean, that has no grounding, because I mean, clearly Mahamaya Patachara, I'm sorry, Mahamaya Devi and Vishaka and all these people, they attained, isn't it?
Mm.
So it
Indeed.
truly does not have any grounding at
Mm.
all,
Mm.
isn't it? So
Indeed.
anyways,
Indeed.
so that is the end, right? That is
Bhante, last question.
yes. Okay.
Bhante, it's very important that we understand Jivtendriya, right, in this particular exercise, yeah, and we contemplate on Jivtendriya. Now, this is Jivtendriya is in terms of Rupa, yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to Arupa Loka, how it manifest? Because
No. This Jivita Indriya,
yeah,
this Jivita Indriya is not
Rupa.
Ekabha Paryapanna. No, it is not just Rupan. It is not just Rupa. It is referring to the element of Jivitindriya, right?
Okay.
And it is referring to specifically
Yeah.
Jivitindriya. And what
Uh-huh.
is Jivitindriya? Jivitindriya as a Rupa is present in every kalapa. It ensures a continuity of that respective Rupa.
Right.
The mind as consciousness energy, mano as mano, as mind, as conscious energy, it ensures a continuity of that consciousness. What we are talking about is jivita indriya, not rupa jivita indriya or mano jivita indriya, jivita indriya,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Jivita indriya cheda, Jivita Indriya Ucheda, it is referring to the Jivita Indriya itself.
Okay.
Right? The falling of that Jivita Indriya.
It's neither the Rupa Jivitendriya nor the
Mano Jivita Indriya.
Chaitasika Jivitendriya.
Yes. It is
Okay.
either. It's the Jivita Indriya.
Indriya. Yeah. Okay. The life itself.
The life itself.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like a
Right.
bhavaya. It's like a bhava. Bhavaya? No. Bhava.
No.
I අපේ ජීවිත ඉන්ද්‍රිය කියලා තියෙන්නේ. The Jivita Indriya itself, right? The Jivita Indriya, it is divisible into two, right? But we are
Yeah.
referring to the Jivita Indriya, not specifically Rupa or Nama. We are referring to Jivita Indriya,
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
right? We are referring
As
to Jivita Indriya.
okay. Thank you very much, Bhante. Yeah.
Because if we would take, now we talk about Kala Marana, Akala Marana.
Yeah.
Right? Kala Marana and Akala Marana is dependent on both Mano and Kaya.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
If we take what? If we take what is the karma which is the lifespan? Garuka. The Garuka Kamma, what is Mano Jitindriya? Garuka Kamma.
Ah.
Right?
Okay.
You get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mano Kamma, Jiviti Indriya is Garuka Kamma.
Mhm.
Right? Garuka Kamma is what? Garuka Kamma is lifespan, life energy, life force.
Yeah.
Jivitindra, Mano Jivitindra is Garuka Kamma.
Mhm.
When a karma comes up to now inflict damage or inflict some sort of stopping of the life force, it is a direct attack on Garuka Kamma, on your Garuka Kamma. So
Yeah.
now a physical attack or even a karmic attack comes to withhold the effects of your Garuka Kamma, which you have done yourself.
Mhm.
So now you see the Garuka Kamma, that energy can be both Mano and Kaya,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Mano or Kaya,
Kaya. Mhm.
right? Now, for example, you take this example, Damsiri and everyone else. Whenever Sariputta was meditating, right? Remember the Mara who came and gave a blow onto his head,
Mm.
right? Now it is said in the commentary, it is said, had Sariputta not been in Nirodha Samapatti, that blow would have shattered him into 1,000 pieces. It was such a strong blow, right? But whenever Sariputta woke up from Nirodha Samapatti and he had a thundering headache, no?
Mm. Yeah.
Now, Garuka Kamma is the Jivitindriya, right?
Mm.
The mind being in Nirodha Samapatti strengthened that Jivitindriya or protected that Jivitindriya.
Yeah.
How you
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
the physical and mental Jivitindriya protected the Garuka Kamma,
Yeah.
the life force. That is why in Marananusati we don't take one Mano Jivitindriya or Kaya Jivitindriya, we take Jivitindriya.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understood?
Okay.
Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. Any other questions?
Bhante, tomorrow's meditation, at what time are we having?
Tomorrow's meditation we will be having at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Usual time, right?
At 7 o'clock in the morning, at 7 o'clock in the morning. I am running a bit of a temperature, although I am doing the class. So I am running a bit of a temperature at the moment itself. So, but I think I'll be able to get up because I'm going to drink 2 pints.
Manage on our own like how we normally do.
Yes. So if I don't come, meditate.
Yeah.
If I don't come, meditate. But because I'm not sure how it will be in the night, but if I don't come, do meditate, do your Buddhanusati, right? But I'm going to come. I think I'm going to come, right? Because I think I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try coming.
Bhante, sorry,
Yes.
just on Sunday, is it 9 o'clock?
It is at 9 o'clock, yes.
Thank you.
It is at 9 o'clock, and what we are going to be discussing, or what Venerable Buddha Vihari is going to be discussing on Sunday, is the differences between Maitri Sankalpaya, right? So usually when we do Maitri, sometimes because we are not so focused on it, on exactly on what Maitri exactly is, and in most cases what happens is we mix Maitri, Mudita and Karuna, right? So Venerable Buddha Vihari is going to talk about Maitri Sankalpa, which is what exactly is Maitri, loving kindness, right? That is going to be the topic of what the discussion is going to be. So he knows a bit of, I don't know how good his English is, but I think it's okay because he does do talks in Malaysia and Indonesia. But anyways, I'm going to be there, so I'll be translating also for those of you who can't understand. So just come along, even if.
What time, Bhante? What time? it is?
අපේ භාවනාව තියෙන වෙලාව 9 ඉඳන් 11 වෙනකම්. Yeah, 9 to on Sunday.
Okay.
Okay. All right, everyone. So then have a good rest of the evening. And
Yeah.
Have we decided what time we are going to do this? We said we'll discuss about it.
yes, discuss on Sunday. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
All right. So take
Okay.
care. Peron Sannai.
Everyone, Bhante. Thank you.